Hey guys, sorry for the late start. I know I said I'd be on at 5:30, but you know how traffic goes. Out here on the highway at a rest stop. Let me get in my car so you guys can actually hear what I'm going to have to say today. Some of the things that I wanted to discuss as this went through, some of the changes that happened in the Senate bill as it went through appropriations, and then also the House bill that's going to be voted on here in a couple of days. It's important to know not just how you feel on an issue, but it's important to know actually the legislation that's going to be passed on an issue. So often I think a lot of people, you know, they have opinions, and it's great that you have opinions. It's great that you have principles and everything like that. But if you don't really understand actually what's going on, your ideas might not flow with what's going on, or you believe a certain principle and you think it sounds like a good idea, and then you read the bill and you're like, whoa, you know, maybe this isn't the best course of action we should be taking. So a couple of the things I wanted to discuss today are going to be both the House and the Senate bill. So we've had a lot of talk of SPB 7026. You also have a House bill going through. It's APC 18-06, and then you have follow-along bills that are going to be APC 18-7 and -8. So it's important to know exactly what the bills are. So we're going to discuss the bills, then a little bit of both my understanding and what I'm going to be arguing, and then at the end I kind of just want to talk a little bit about, you know, the climate of America and what's going on, and really what we need to sort of think about when we present principles, and really when we, as libertarians or as just conservatives in general, or anybody who cares about the Constitution, what we think about these types of ideas, because they're important. They're not just, you know, oh, I don't like guns, so I'm gonna take all the guns, and all the guns are gonna be gone, and it's gonna be great. Because these types of principles, these types of ideas of we're gonna take guns, well, they spill into other things, or the way that we write bills make it plausible for us to take rights away from other people. And you might not care about this issue, or you might not be on the stance of the issue that I am for this specific subject, but we might agree on other things. For instance, yes, we might be taking away just guns right now, but what happens when they start trying to take away voter rights because they consider you mentally incompetent? Or, you know, they start trying to take away, you know, guns from, let's say, black people. I mean, what's the difference of a black person owning a gun versus someone under 21? You can say it's a mental state, but, you know, how is that argued? Okay, so hopefully everyone had a few minutes to be able to log on and start watching the live stream. So the two different bills that are being acknowledged on the floor tomorrow. So they've already made it through committee. So let's get that straight. There is no more debate on the verbiage of the bill. These two bills are here to stay. So there's going to be no change in the verbiage. So the only thing that we can do now, if we don't like the bill, is have them vote it down, recommend it to go back to committee, and then have that committee actually change the verbiage, which is really my intent and goal with actually going up to Tallahassee, is to convince enough senators and enough representatives that both of their bills' language is too far apart, that they need to send it back to their committees to sort of shore that up, and then I can actually go and then lobby inside of the committees to be able to actually get changes made to the verbiage. So we'll start with the Senate bill, because I was actually there for the Senate bill. Not much changed in committee. A little bit of wording changed on an amendment, but for the most part, it's going to be straightforward. So you have your mental health clause. They're going to be able to go, and if you've ever been Baker Acted, if you are believed to be mentally incompetent, so on and so forth, based on judicial process and stuff like that, they will be able to come in and take your guns. The issue that I have with that, again, is a Fourth Amendment issue. You can't just walk into someone's house. You know, searches and seizures are done because they are collecting evidence and stuff like that, and if you go through due process, that's great. But there's some language in this bill that basically says that, I don't know the best way to phrase this, but essentially it makes it very vague on what is considered mentally incompetent or mentally unstable, or, you know, there's very good rules in there if you've ever been Baker acted, you know, if you're considered to you know, be mentally unstable, or you have PTSD and you're considered suicidal and stuff like that. It can help you out. I mean, it can help your family members out and stuff like that. But there's also a couple other things where, you know, it can be as vague as one of your doctors said that, you know, you're unfit to do this job or do this or do that. And that one piece of mental instability can make it so that you might be brought in front of a court and your guns will have already been taken. The thing that I don't like about this bill, and the thing that I don't like about what Trump's been talking about recently, is take the guns first, figure it out later. It's not the society that we've been set up in. As much as I do believe that, you know, you got to get guns out of bad people's hands. Bad people are going to do bad things. You know, you have, you know, gangs that are out on the streets causing mayhem and everything like this, and there are definitely bad people in this society that are not responsible and therefore don't deserve the right to own guns. However, you can't just go and take personal property away from somebody without due process first, and that's a very important part of what I'm going to be arguing up in this bill. Some of the other portions of the bill are basically, you know, the whole allowing teachers to own guns, or not own guns, but bring guns into the schools. First off, the fact that you restrict a human being from being able to bring a weapon into somewhere technically violates their Second Amendment rights. However, there are certain situations, for instance, going into a Capitol building, where maybe you don't want a bunch of people holding guns when they start debating things that they don't agree on. However, the situation of teachers, I believe that if a teacher goes through training, 132 hours of training, if a teacher goes and passes all the qualifications, knows how to tactically deal with themselves, and they voluntarily choose to defend not only themselves, but other students, I believe that could possibly have prevented as many deaths that happened in Parkland as they did. The cops didn't act. Straight up, the cops didn't act. But the teachers who were inside fearing for their lives with their students, they could have acted. They could have had an opportunity to actually do something, and they were restricted. Now, being somebody who myself may or may not have pissed off a few teachers in my day because I disagreed with some of their opinions, yeah, scares me a little bit. But you know what? We have too many students in this day and age who don't understand that there's consequences for their actions, and quite honestly, maybe they need a little fear in their lives. Now, I know I am not in any way, shape, or form authorizing students or teachers to use their guns as an authoritarian measure against students, and it's not what I'm going for at all here. But what I'm saying is I understand parents' fear when they say there's going to be a gun in a school when they choose not to have a gun in their own homes. However, as yes, sovereign student Chris Rose. But as an adult and as someone who is supposed to be there to protect and usher students through hard times, I think teachers should have the option, if they choose to hold a weapon. But we can get into that in a second. Some of the other things that actually scare me about this bill is credible threats. So the student at Parkland, he was allowed to go and basically make threats online. 39 times the sheriff's office showed up at his house for complaints or for other reasons, and nothing was able to be done. He brought knives to school. He brought bullets to school. They restricted him from carrying backpacks. They had the right to search him at any given time. But because of a thing called the Promise Rule in Broward County, basically they turned a blind eye to it. So any crimes that occurred on school property and stuff like that, they could choose to allow a student to go so that they didn't have a criminal record. It didn't, hurt their chances of getting into college and stuff like that. And really, the purpose of that rule was to make it so that, if a kid had a little pot on campus, or, maybe they brought a little bit of alcohol or something stupid, they could be punished at a school level, but it wouldn't actually go on their criminal record. However, this kid multiple times proved that he was going to do something and actually did it. And because of rules like the Promise Rule in Broward County, cops really were unable to do anything at the schools and failed to do anything at his house. Now, this law would try to change some of that and say that the sheriff's office has discretion, and if you own or have been licensed to own, or you have purchased guns, or they know that you have guns, and you are deemed a reasonable threat, not a credible threat, but a reasonable threat, and that verbiage wasn't changed in the Appropriations Committee, which is another problem that I have, they can basically come in and take your guns. They don't have to give due process. It is a very lengthy process in order to get those guns back. It's not a terrible idea, but again, you need some sort of proof system, and the words reasonable threat instead of credible threat give me a lot of issue, because, anyone can say, hey, you're a reasonable threat. I could call up and, for anyone who knows, say that Paul Stanton's a reasonable threat. And someone could bust into his house, and anything that they find, he could go to jail for. You have ex-girlfriends or ex-boyfriends that are pissed off at their exes and stuff like that, who could call in and call up domestic charges or this, that, and the other, and do all these things. So there does need to be a better process set in place, and this bill is very lackluster in its wording of the actual processes that in place. Now, I do like that it does institute home rule. So if your county chooses to extend laws or to evaluate the process in which they do process and stuff like that, it does allow your local governments to take up certain restraints against you. However, it does not actually provide for anybody to have a, reasonable ability to defend themselves, to defend the fact that they didn't do something wrong. Now, the purpose of that was if you are being abused, if you have domestic violence in your house and stuff like that, if cops come on a domestic violence charge, the purpose of this law was to make it so that if you're beating your wife, they can take your guns. That seems fair. But you have to prove that someone's beating their wife, or that someone's abusing someone, or violating the NAP in some way in order to do that. Some of the other issues that I have with the bill has to do with the 21 rule, which is a big, just across the board, not okay. I've listened to a lot of people, and a lot of people say, well, youngsters these days aren't capable of, making good decisions, and look at them, a year ago they're eating Tide Pods, and now you want to give them guns and allow them to buy guns and everything like that. Well, the argument I make is yeah, a year ago they were eating Tide Pods. What are we doing as a society to change students who are eating Tide Pods? Let's actually look at the problems. Let's look at the educational institutions. Let's look at the mental health, availability that are being given in these schools. Let's look at how children are being raised. Let's look at the fact that parents aren't coming to PTA meetings anymore. Let's look at the fact that children aren't bringing home their homework anymore and doing their homework and then just telling their teachers to go fuck off. I apologize for the wording, but it's the truth. You have a lack of respect in the child population nowadays, and you have basically a lot of whimsy where the schools aren't allowed to reprimand your children anymore. Parents will show up when you take a kid's cell phone away, or when you do anything else, but they're not being reprimanded when they do something wrong. And so, yeah, you know what? We might not be creating good good students, or good children, or, kids that are capable of independently thinking. However, we really need to look at the fact that at 18 years old, they're tried as an adult. They are no longer a minor. So if you can commit a law, or if you can break a law and be sentenced and committed to pay for the crimes as an adult, I think with all reasonability that, you know, we should be allowed to carry guns. If I can make responsible choices as an adult and be punished as an adult at 18 years old, I should be able to make responsible choices as a gun owner. You know, if I can go to the military and, you know, they can send me overseas and I'm, you know, as a military person, you know, dropping bombs on women and children, and at 18 years old, am responsible for, you know, flying a drone. Well, maybe not 18, around 21, but if I can sign up to do that kind of stuff at 18, if I can enter into, you know, legally binding contracts, not just, you know, student loans and stuff like that, but legally binding business contracts that could affect the rest of my life, when I can get married, when I can, you know, go and gamble and do all these other things and make all these life choices. You're telling me that I'm an adult enough to completely change the course of my life, but I'm not adult enough to defend myself or to buy something that I can keep at home? That in and of itself is an oxymoron. And one of the things that I'm going to bring up to them there is basically, listen, you know, you could say that, hey, you know, 60% of gang violence is in black neighborhoods, so why don't we just restrict black people from getting guns? And that would just cut down on gang violence in urban neighborhoods. It's the same sort of idea of, you know, a small minority of a grouped population has been told that, you know, they're irresponsible gang members. That doesn't make the whole population irresponsible. I'm not saying that every black person is irresponsible, because they're not. I have great friends of all races. I don't care about your race. But if you're going to make a law that specifically restricts anyone based on a category like that without serving due process, or, you know, giving individuals the right to, you know, circumvent that, then all you're doing is creating oppressive laws. You're creating an authoritarian society where you can group and lump people into something. Who's not to say that if right now it's, you know, okay, let's take away guns from 21-year-olds, and next week it's not, you know, all right, well, we don't think, you know, anyone under the age of 21 is smart enough to vote anymore, so we're going to take away that vote population. If you're an adult, you should have the right, as an adult, to make responsible choices for yourself, and until proven otherwise, you should not be treated any other way. I don't think much else was added to the bill or anything else, but the big sticking points for me is the fact that they, at least in the Senate bill, is that they can come into your house without great cause, take your personal property, and you have to spend thousands of dollars on legal fees, which you'll never recoup, in order just to get your own rights back. I also disagree that you should never group anybody into a category simply for the purpose of putting them in a category for restricting them to do things, unless you can prove that every single person put into that category guaranteed will do whatever you said you were trying to restrict them from. So we really need to be cautious when it comes to those type of things. And that's the main outline of the Senate bill. I do think actually the Senate bill has a better chance of being voted down. There are more Democrats in the Senate than there are in the House, and the Democrats are unhappy that the bill includes both the teachers with guns, and that it includes the fact that there was an assault rifle ban. So there are Democrats that are unhappy about it, and then there's Republicans who hopefully we can sway their minds with the fact that, guess what, you're taking away conservative principles and you are going to alienate your base by restricting their rights to the Second Amendment. So that's really what I'm going to fight in the Senate, is just the age and the Fourth Amendment rights issues, and the fact that, you know, we can't start making laws that start restricting people's freedoms and rights just because we're afraid. If we just pass trash laws through the state and stuff like that, that's how we end up making laws that are unjust and end up hurting people in the long run and ruining their lives. So that's my thoughts on the Senate bill. The House bill is more or less the same. The only difference is that the House bill itself includes a couple extra things. So there was money set aside in the Senate bill for things like, SRO programs and stuff like that. Why stop at 21? Is 25 next? Well, I mean, they could put it up to 40. They could do whatever they want reasonably. If you start making society say that, this person's irresponsible, why can't another person be irresponsible? So yes, Chris, you are right. Once it gets to a certain age, they can just keep on bumping it up until it's just all gone. So as far as the House bill, the differences between the House bill and the Senate bill outlines some money for SRO programs and stuff like that. The House bill takes it an extra step further. The House bill has much stricter language on, or much broader language when it comes to, what classifies mentally handicapped or mentally ill or domestic violence and stuff like that. It's not strict enough, but it restricts more people. So it's very important that that verbiage specifically is changed. Some of the other things that it does is it opens up a commission for the actual review of the Parkland shooting, both on the side of the did they do enough as SROs? Did the police do enough and stuff like that? And then it also looks into the FBI and their role in things and stuff like that. Now, obviously, the state doesn't have credibility to go against the FBI. However, the state can file a lawsuit against the FBI if it is found that the FBI should have done something and they didn't. However, everything that these bills contain give the rights basically home rule. So the Sheriff Israel, who is the moron running the Broward County Sheriff's Office, it gives him the authority to make more important decisions about gun control, about who is a threat and who is not a threat. And that's going to lead into some of the stuff I'm going to talk to at the end, but some of the really important things that we need to talk about in these videos and in person and stuff like that is the fact that a law like this is made and it sounds good on paper. Hey, we're doing something. Hey, something's happening. Hey, whatever you want to call it. And then you get 5 years down the road and the people that were in office when you made the bill are no longer in office. The people that are doing things are no longer there. And you have a completely different set of sheriffs and everything else. And then you get someone like Sheriff Israel who starts using this to his own benefit to go after people that he considers, enemies or something like this, or he, makes up some BS for this, that, or the other, and he starts to manipulate laws like this, or he starts to not do his due diligence when it comes to training law enforcement professionals and stuff like that. And it's just the slippery slope of once you start taking away constitutional rights from people, you can never really get them back. It is the toughest fight in the world. It is hard to fight them getting taken away. It is nearly impossible to get them fought for, to give them back. And that's kind of where we're at. So the House bill wants to look into the handling of it and everything else like that, but it puts rules in place before we even have an affirmative idea of what actually went on in the school. Is there laws that we could actually, put in place that really and truly would help have prevented something like this? Could we have created a system that would have kept this kid from shooting people? We don't know. We haven't gotten enough evidence. It's been less than 2 weeks since the shooting. In fact, it was 2 weeks today that the shooting happened, and all of a sudden we are almost passing a law that is taking away Second Amendment rights and Fourth Amendment rights from people. We're taking away due process. We spent 2 weeks on a bill that is being shoved through because people like Rick Scott want to run for a Senate campaign against a Democrat, and so he's trying to seem like he's doing something. It's all politically motivated. Trump is doing this because it's politically motivated. We're not actually looking at the words and the verbiage of the bills. What we are doing is just passing garbage laws that sound great when you talk about them until they affect you legally. And we need to be really careful of that. One of the other things that I don't like about the House bill is it has provisions in there and stuff like that to actually take specific rights away from people that have been found to be in violation while possessing guns. It was a small clause in there. I haven't looked at the new bill that is actually going to the floor. Unfortunately, I've been driving. I only had a chance to look at the Senate bill. So I will be reviewing that tonight. If I find anything, I will post it on Orange County's Facebook page so that you guys have a chance to actually review all that and look over the actual, you know, the true summary text from someone who isn't a senator or Republican, someone who's not trying to get elected. All I care about is that you guys are taken care of, that our rights are secured, and that our communities are safe. So to keep it short, I don't want to go too long because I still got to go up to Tallahassee. I'm just north of Gainesville now, so I probably got another 2 hours. But I will say this. There are a lot of people out there who just think that if they get on Facebook or if they seem unhappy about something or something like that, you know, things are going to work out the way. They elected someone who's going to do the right thing, or, you know, my politician would never do anything wrong, and it's a complete fabrication of the truth. There is not a single politician out there who cares more about you than they do about themselves. And if you believe that, then there's more problems with the voter system than we can possibly even begin to tackle right now. But some of the really important things that you need to understand is you have to do your due diligence to make sure that when you said that you don't approve of something, that they are holding to it. You need to hold people accountable. Isn't that the whole point? You know, you say that, Democrats say that people can't be responsible with guns. Well, then we have to hold them accountable. We have to hold gun owners accountable when anything goes wrong. That's the point. Responsibility has consequences. We're not saying that people are just going to run around in an anarchist society. We're saying that people can live responsibly, but when you make criminals out of people who otherwise would be law-abiding citizens, but then all of a sudden you write some verbiage into a law and all of a sudden you have a bunch of criminals, well, once I'm already a criminal, I'm more likely to do other criminal things. And we need to be very careful of that. We need to be careful of who we're electing, especially at the sheriff's level. Orange County, we have a sheriff's election going on this year. Mr. Demings is trying to run for mayor, and therefore he is stepping down from his position. And who we have take his spot is going to be very important because it's how the laws are enforced, especially with gun laws like these being put in place. It's very important for us to get out there and make sure that our voices are heard and represented in the people who are actually going to be, you know, enforcing these laws. So that's very important. The last thing that I will leave you with is something that I actually saw on the podcast that Derek was on. And it's this idea that I'm actually going to fight for and lobby for a little bit up there. Right now, gun shop owners who are legal FFL dealers and who are, you know, legally going about selling guns through a brick and mortar location, they do not have, well, they can restrict the sale of guns to anybody, but they can still be taken to court over it. They can still, you know, have legal liabilities and everything like that. And one of the things that the guy on the podcast said was, why don't we give gun dealers the right, if they don't feel comfortable selling a gun to someone because that person looks suspicious, they should have the right under that principle to not sell someone a gun. Yes, when we talk about responsible gun ownership, we need to talk about responsible gun sales. We need to make sure that the people selling the guns are responsible as well. And 99% of them are. You know, until you start getting into this black market idea where if we ban all guns, well, it's going to go to the black market. Guess what's going to happen on the black market? You're not going to have responsible gun owners. You're just going to have people out there looking to make money. They don't care who the guns go to. Currently, FFL dealers do care who the guns go to. So we need to be careful. We need to be very diligent about what we're doing. And I'll leave this in submission. Make sure that you contact your senators. Make sure that you contact your representatives. Make sure that you are contacting the people that are able to actually do something about this. Don't just stop because it's 5 o'clock and you think that they're not going to be in their offices. Blow up their emails tonight. email them, call them, show up at their district offices, do it all day tomorrow. Make your presence known. You can shoot emails off all day. Go onto their Facebook pages. Make sure that on Facebook you are logged in as a constituent, that you have put in your address into Facebook so that it can actually tell, well, if you are cool with putting your address into Facebook, but put your address into Facebook, and it will tell you not only that you're a constituent when you actually comment on a page, but you can actually go into a political activity area, and it will tell you who your senators and representatives are, both for the U.S. congressional level and for the state level. So it takes that one extra layer out of figuring out who you need to contact. But we really, really, really need to get out there, and we need to start contacting people. We need to start getting people to realize that we need action. We need people contacting their state representatives and their senators, and we really need people active in the community. We need people to realize that this just isn't, a Facebook conversation or a one-sided argument. There are millions of people in this state who are responsible gun owners, and there are millions of people more in this state that believe that responsible gun owners can and do provide a very valuable service as a armed neighbor to keep their neighborhoods safe. So be active, be diligent. I am on my way to Tallahassee. I need to get on the road. I'm losing daylight. But please, everybody, do not stop tonight. Just blow up their emails. Write in the text, I am against gun control. I am against gun bans. I am against limits to 21 to buy weapons. I am against. Let them know that you will not have your rights taken away, and that you believe that citizens can responsibly, and let me say that again, responsibly own guns. Yes, 0.111% of, or 0.00001% of the population might be irresponsible. But so are people who text and drive. So are people who drink and drive. So are people who go out, and aren't paying attention when they cross crosswalks. So are people who, are dumping chemicals into rivers and stuff like that and doing all these other things. But one of the craziest things that got brought up to me is there are 5 times more deaths in the state of Florida to people who are texting and driving than there are to all mass shootings yearly in America. Okay? That's a huge statistic. There are more people that die in Florida alone from texting and driving every year than there are mass shooters. Does that mean we should start taking away cell phones? Does that mean we should start taking away cars? Does that mean we should start restricting anybody under the age of 25 from being able to, operate a vehicle? So just think on that when you think about, oh, well, they're taking guns. I don't agree with guns. I don't like guns. So yeah, let's take away all of them. It starts with guns. And then the bar moves a little bit more, and it moves a little bit more, and it moves a little bit more, until we get to a point where we've given up so many freedoms in this country that we won't ever get them back. So make a stand, make it loud, get involved. I appreciate everyone who supported me throughout this process. It will definitely be doing more live feeds as I get up into Tallahassee tomorrow. And I will definitely, absolutely keep you guys apprised of everything that's going on. I implore you guys to tune in. Live tweet your senators, live tweet your representatives. Believe you me, they are getting messages while they are in the House, and I promise you, they are listening. If you are a constituent, they know it, and they are afraid that is the only reason this gun bill is getting passed through is because it is an election year, and they are afraid that their votes are going to go to the other side. So make sure that you're loud. I wish all of you the best, and I really, really hope that we don't go down a path this week and maybe even into next week that we can't come back from. Thanks, everybody, and I will catch you on the flip side.